Today, I finally received authorization to launch a Tier 4 missile at Raptor's country, France. Twos, send an antimatter strike right at Raptor, that would be legendary. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. An antimatter explosion on the server looks like this. And it's the second most powerful missile on the server, just below the Endringer, which I remind you, has never been launched in the entire history of NG. Before you can send this kind of missile to another country, there are a lot of steps. First, you have to get the missile. Then, you need to reach the required level in research and development to be able to launch the missile. Start a war. Make sure the war has lasted long enough. And finally, get authorization from the UN. It's an event that happens once a week where all the countries gather. They decide if we get missile launch authorization, we've nearly finished all steps and just need UN approval. By the way, it's going to go so badly you saw it in the title. But this might be the last episode of this season of NG, but let's take things one step at a time. We're upset with Raptor mainly because we've had history with him for nearly 5 years, and he keeps targeting all the countries in the alliance. Currently, Crete is suffering the most. Raptor is provoking Crete like Bismarck, hoping they'll retaliate. If Crete defends itself, France gets a reason to declare war. So yeah, it's obviously a reference to Otto von Bismarck, but I don't know the exact reference from the comment. Still, I appreciate the historical references. What's happening is that every time Raptor gets the chance, he launches attacks against Crete. And despite the fact that we have help from Malta, which is an extremely powerful PvP country, just to tell you, thanks to them, we've already won battles in 19 versus 8 fights. But unfortunately, despite their great performance, Raptor managed to narrowly win the war, which forced Crete to pay him $430,000. Even for the Corsican Empire, that's huge! To get revenge, I'm deciding which antimatter missile to launch at Raptor. In the last episode, we tried to get one during the Megalodon fight but failed. Apparently someone named MMVG got it to drop. Just to clarify, we already have an antimatter missile in Corsica, but if we can avoid using it, it's better for the rankings because having an antimatter missile in the faction chest earns 1 point per week. That's money, so it'd be a shame to lose it. I messaged him since I hear he's selling his antimatter. There's Yeb.
So yes, I'm selling my antimatter, but as you probably know, Baratheon is kind of an enemy, an alliance that's hostile to Hareen, and selling you the antimatter would be a bit contradictory, especially since it's thanks to Baratheon that I got it, which wouldn't really work out.
Well, this conversation reminds me of that comment we got in the last episode. Next episode, it's France that got the antimatter and Raptor uses it against us. Well, in this case, it's actually Baratheon who got it, but we're lucky, because for now, none of their countries have permission to launch Tier 4 missiles. Whew. In any case, that means we're going to have to use the antimatter missile we have in the Corsica vault, and before we can launch it, we need to refuel it. It requires 200 liters, just so you know, it's the missile that needs the most. There's also a power system and a risk of failure that we can't mess up, but one thing at a time. While it's filling up, here's my list of everything I wanted to do. There's not much left. The hardest part will be getting the Tier 5 missile since no one has gotten it yet on Nation's Glory. Next, there's defeating Raptor. I think we can do it today. And finally, taking back the entire Mediterranean. Again, we're relatively close to that. There are still a few stubborn countries, but if we manage to beat Raptor today, we can almost kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We have the Balkans, which owns a small part of the Mediterranean. I haven't talked to them yet, but it's on my to-do list. There's also a part of the Mediterranean, but I've spoken with Lebanon, and once they reach the needed R&D level, they're ready to join the alliance. Nice! Well, and there's also an obvious country, as plain as the nose on your face, Italy. Italy, they still have quite a few chunks in the Mediterranean, and I think it's by far the most difficult country we're going to have to deal with. Unlike France, which also controls parts of the Mediterranean, we can't attack them, since Italy is part of the Stark, who are still our allies. That's why, if I can't take all of Italy, I'd like to take all of the Mediterranean that's around Italy. That's why I set up a little call with Sami, the leader of Italy, to see if there was an arrangement to be made. So guys, if I'm here to talk with you today, it's because I'd like to find some common ground regarding Italy. So you know, with Corsica, we'd like to control the Mediterranean, but as far as I know, Italy is part of the Mediterranean, so isn't there a way for us to make it work? So, I know that Italy is a great country, that you are powerful, that you are very well built up, but isn't it possible to get closer with Empire Corse and with Hareen in general?
Actually, no.
Yes or no. Damn, I don't know. Wait, give me a second, actually. I wasn't briefed. Ouch.
Ouch, ouch.
A reconciliation, sure, but we can be on good terms, but we'll never leave Stark.
If we can find an arrangement that benefits Corsica, isn't there a world where, for example, we could consider taking over the Italian coastal claims for compensation, of course, which would allow us, in effect, to control the Mediterranean, or at least, for example, the Italian coasts. Not necessarily what you've built, but the Mediterranean part.
Basically, you want to take our coasts. Yeah, and the problem is, we're aiming for both of Bodyset to get a permanent red. But the issue is we don't have them, so we'll need to expand further and make bigger builds. We have strong projects in the south.
There's not even a part of the ocean we could take back. I mean, right now, we're dealing with an absolute monster here.
It could all come down to just a few claims.
Okay, honestly, it didn't go that badly, and if we manage to take back that chunk, things are really looking good. Anyway, so I finally have my missile with my 200 liters of fuel. As I mentioned, I need to request approval from the UN before launching. Today is Thursday, so that will be in 2 days. And since it's Morocco that's going to launch the missile, it's Morocco that will have to argue that sending a missile is justified. I checked on the wiki. Here are the conditions to be able to launch this famous antimatter missile. The war must last at least 2 weeks, with a significant number of Tier 3 and Tier 2 launches. That's good. Construction areas must be substantial or equivalent with necessary equipment and bunkers. This prevents a small country from easily destroying a much larger one that took weeks to build. And in this case, I think Morocco actually has some pretty impressive builds, so it's justified. And regarding the bunkers, it's so that people don't just move their stuff overnight just in case a missile comes back at them, and then they end up taking no damage. So I think that's fine. After submitting a request, moving equipment is forbidden and may lead to confiscation. We're not planning to do that, so it's fine. On the other hand, we're really going to have to hurry, because I heard that Raptor made modifications to this building to get it listed with UNESCO. And if that's the case, we won't be able to send missiles anymore. But for now, I think the request was denied. He's making the modifications, so we have to move quickly. But Fuse, we'll also need to get Morocco's construction approved by UNESCO. You're right. In the last episode, we got from the staff the changes we needed to make to our construction for it to be approved by UNESCO. Honestly, there were quite a few, and I think Morocco mainly focused on that last week.
Yeah, Fuse. Well, for all the points the staff listed for us, we've solved all of them except the last one, where we're currently demolishing what's left of the old village, which was more coherent, and so we're rebuilding the new one.
Honestly, it's progressing well, and I think you can see it. A large part of the village has been removed, and we've also started building some of the houses in the new style. It takes a long time, but I think we can get UNESCO approval before everything's finished, since coherence is what matters most. We don't need to have built everything to get approval. But as a result, I think that once we've launched our Tier 4 missile Raptor, we'll definitely send one back at us. So we'll have to expect some destruction on the Morocco side. But honestly, that's just part of the game. Since if we send a Tier 4 and get Tier 3S back, that's fair play. In the Empire course, other countries have made progress. Especially Malta. Malta is that little island right in the middle of the Mediterranean, and apparently it was too small for them. That's why they started building this new island, John Pork Island. Pork, I don't know why they called it that. I'm not sure why they built it, since after taking over Tunisia, they have plenty to build. Still, I think it's pretty cool. Next to it is Crete, or actually, now it's Cyprus. Since in the last episode, we did something to give them a higher military level, what they've done now is they've removed all the ocean around Crete, and they're developing the seabed. Apparently, it's something that's necessary to have the full build. It's a bit annoying, but it's part of the game. By the way, in our alliance, each country has a very specific rule. Everyone has to build a Didier on their territory. And that's exactly what Turkey did between the last episode and today. They built a Didier with an imperial crown. Honestly, it looks cool. And I think that's also where they come out when they're in their F home. Look, they've put all the seats here. These are the seats where you can teleport from seat to seat to get out of the base. Honestly, I approve. It's really cool. Okay, so I'm gonna check my list of countries in the Corsican Empire to see if I haven't forgotten anything. And now, as I told you, we have a newcomer, Lebanon. For now, they haven't built anything. They've just started. And I don't know why, but they've given everyone direct access to their F home. So let's go take a look, but it's really not recommended. So these are all the projects they have. They've built a small bunker. They have a few machines. Well, let's see how it goes. Well, otherwise, in the other countries of the Alliance, there's Libya, which hasn't made any progress since the last episode, and Egypt, which has started this construction. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but it looks really impressive. The news from Corsica. Subscribe. So I still put the jingle for you. The only thing is that it comes after the real news. And after that, I let 48 hours go by until we reach the crucial moment at the UN. The crucial day at the UN arrived. Morocco participated and made its request for the missile. And guess what? We went to the UN. It's done. We have permission. Yes, you know what that means. So now we're getting ready to launch an assault on Raptors France as soon as possible. And while I'm doing this, we have to be very careful with Rule 5.5.2 of the regulations. A country with explosion damage is not allowed to launch missiles. There is a 3-hour period after the end of the assault during which the country can continue to respond to missiles. This response period for a TNT minecart is 24 hours. Well, we don't care about the TNT minecart. This means after we launch our Tier 4 missile with Morocco at Raptors France, unless he repairs the huge hole at his place, he can't retaliate except during the 3 hours after the attack. So here, we're really dealing with a masterclass. From this point on, our goal is to attack France as quickly as possible. We want to take them by surprise, because for now, they don't know that we've made a request to the UN. And so, they don't know they're about to get hit with a Tier 4 missile right in the face. Well, that was the initial plan, because in reality, it took us more than a week to coordinate. The plan was for me to be online when we launched the Tier 4 missile so we could capture it on video. Naturally, Raptor knows what we're trying to do. But more than 7 days after we got authorization from the UN, look at this. We have 2 players currently online in France. The Jackson and Raptor 130. Let's go, we're launching the assault. As you can imagine, but we had already set up a launch platform. Tom Vader, who's Moroccan, will handle launching the Tier 4 missile. Ultimately, we just moved a bit farther away. That's just to stop France from stealing the missile at the border. Honestly, it's still pretty stressful. 3, 2, 1, here we go. The antimatter is already in place. It's heading straight for France. So, the thing is, it takes some time to get there, because the missile has to go up and then it has to come back down. But I admit it's always a bit stressful because it always takes longer than expected. Sometimes it feels like the server intercepted your missile or something. I wanted to show you the missile hitting France, but it crashed all nearby players, including myself. But when I reconnected, are you ready to see the damage to France? Ta-da! It's such a gigantic hole that you can see it from space. And look, when I walk around inside, we have direct VIP access to their F-home. Honestly, with the heat wave going on right now, I made them a little draft. They should actually thank me, right? Even more satisfying is that many of the buildings that were destroyed, including the entrance to their UNESCO site, will be very hard to rebuild. Nice! Then we finished the assault calmly, which we obviously won, and I swear, it feels really great to finally be able to check off this objective. Well, as for the other Mediterranean objective, we're not there yet. To do that, we must win the war, not just an assault. Still, our missile brings us one step closer. One of my hopes is that Raptor, after this, will surrender and offer to sell us his claims in the Mediterranean for a lower price. That's when the video went off the rails, because that's not what I got from Raptor.
My name is Fuse. I've played NG for 6 years, but still don't know the OERI nation rules.
Looking at the R&D tiers for France, I realized that France is also allowed to send antimatter missiles. But what? To reach that tier, it means he must have fought a lot of wars, and I don't know how that's possible. But that also means that if Raptor decides to use the antimatter missile that's in his country's stockpile, he has 3 hours to launch it at Morocco. No! Assault begins between France and Corsica at 4:26 p.m. No. Now, honestly, this is looking extremely good. Bad. There might still be a small chance that he decides not to launch a Tier 4 missile and just sends a Tier 3 missile instead. But on the other hand, as we've seen, it's Baratheon who got the antimatter missile in last week's events. It would be stupid for them not to use it. There, I don't like this sound. I think I'm going to crash too. No, not now. Since I crashed like that, it's clear they sent us an antimatter missile. From what I see on Discord, it wasn't just me. Basically, the whole NG server crashed. Actually, Raptor, in his country, he has a nuclear missile charger. That's why every time they sent us a missile, it made gigantic holes in the country. That was the famous power percentage we saw in the last episode. Okay, so now, as soon as I reconnect, look, I died from falling. I'm actually just too scared to see the result on the country. Just so you know, to come back, I had to go through the spawn, and when you look at it more closely, this is what the gigantic hole looks like. If we quickly compare it to the hole that Raptor had in his country, it's nothing alike. It goes from the center of UNESCO all the way to the south of Spain. It's just cataclysmic. No, it also destroyed all the bunkers that were underground. These are all the items that were inside our chests. Everything was destroyed. The only things that barely survived were the tractors and the things that were in our farms. It's a disaster. However, there's something I really don't understand. Morocco sent a Tier 4 missile, but it's Spain that got hit by the counter missile. How is that possible? Technically, Raptor doesn't have that right, does he? Actually, the reason is simple. The antimatter missile rules include a specific provision. In a war against a buffer country, if that country meets the conditions for an antimatter launch, the missile can be fired at the parent country. So, actually, Raptor proved that Morocco was the buffer country for Corsica, and that gave him an excuse to counterattack us. That's also why he waited a week before we could send him a missile. Actually, he was patiently waiting for the next week's UN meeting to make his request. It's both genius and horrible at the same time. This is what Corsica looks like. This is what France looks like. It's completely overpowered. I didn't remember how powerful Tier 4 missiles were. And to be honest, actually, I was almost disappointed when I saw the one that hit France. But that's just because in Corsica, we don't have the nuclear warhead for the missiles. Funny fact though, some rooms in the F-home actually survived. The people who were there were lucky. Paradoxically, I'm actually quite satisfied that it wasn't Morocco that got hit, because it would have been a real disaster if the work done at UNESCO had been destroyed. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think Corsica can recover from this. To be completely transparent, I thought I would finish this season of Nation's Glory with that Tier 4 missile. I didn't expect it to turn against us. But no matter what happens, this season of Nation's Glory has been incredible. We conquered a good part of the Mediterranean, which was our goal, met a lot of people, trolled Raptor many times. And if we do a quick calculation, I sent a screenshot of the map to ChatGPT, we own about 80 to 82% of the Mediterranean coast. It's up to you to decide if the goal was achieved. And as for Tier 5, that will have to wait until next season. Well, and you know what? They even allowed me to tease a little bit about the next update, which will be the start of the new season of NG. Alright, I won't share too much, but there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Even the map has been redone. There could be a weather system, but I'm not sure. So don't worry, Nation's Glory will be back soon, and if you don't want to miss it, you know the drill. Hit the like button, subscribe, and get the tier 4 missile Raptor. I'll come back for you next season.